All right, we promised you Kurt Helin from NBC Sports would be joining us. You can follow him on Twitter at Basketball Talk, and Kurt lives there in Southern California, so he's been a part of what's been going on, unfortunately, in the basketball world because everybody is hurting. And Kurt, as a guy that has been in that area a long, long time, I would imagine it's been like a giant morgue or a giant funeral home, let's put it that way, in Southern California right now with everybody hurting.
Yeah, it's definitely been somewhere between a wake and a funeral. I mean, the shock was lasted a day or so. I mean, and I think this wasn't just in Los Angeles. I mean, this was so random and so out of the blue and just so. Kobe was a guy who so controlled everything in his life, including, like, hey, sure, I ruptured an Achilles at 34. I'm not letting that define how I leave the league. I'm going to leave on my own terms as long as that took. That made this, just him not. This was something obviously out of his control, and that just made the whole thing feel a little more shocking. So it's been a little stunning, and then the sadness has creeped in around as that has faded around here in Southern California. And there's just still a lot of people in shock. There's still a lot of people just kind of stunned, and there was, there's a huge memorial across from Staples that'll probably be there for a while because the Lakers now, aren't going to play until Friday. So.
Yeah, no, you're right, and it would have been a crazy night tonight if they would have held that game, and I think they did the right thing in postponing this game because it's just too soon for everybody. Although, in a twisted way, can you imagine if Donald Sterling was still around owning that team? He might have made it difficult on the league and the Lakers, even in that situation. You know that?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he actually had a really good. Weirdly, he had a good relationship with the Lakers. You got to remember, he actually loaned Jerry Buss the money back in the day to originally help buy the team. Like Jerry, he was a real estate guy, but his money was tied up and stuff. And Donald Sterling helped him with a loan to originally buy the team. But that said, you never know what would have happened. I think it was the right thing because it's not just the Laker players, and they're almost in some ways way more transient than the rest of the Laker organization, which is very family run by the Buss family. And Kobe was part of that family for 20 years. And it's not just the players or the coaches and the trainers, it's the whole business side and the people, in ticket sales and marketing, and who have dealt with Kobe and got to know Kobe over the years because he helped with so much stuff, not to mention the depth of the front office and everything on the basketball side. So it really shaken them as an organization and it's just as people because they really lost somebody they viewed as a close friend. So I don't know that they were ready to put on a game beyond just playing. Like, I'm not sure how the organization was going to go through the motions of putting on a game yet. I don't think they were ready.
When yesterday they announced that, and then when I heard people elaborating a little bit more on it, I never thought about this.
Yeah.
That the people in that organization, a lot of them, from people that work in the arena to trainers, there were people that were tied to Kobe for 10, 15, 20 years. And so they knew him for a long. So there's emotionally, there's actually people in that building that are they're truly hurting right now, way more than any of us, because they literally had that physical connection with that guy. And I think this was the right thing of giving that organization a real amount of time to grieve. We understand that everything else needs to move forward, but you got to give them some time to kind of, recover from all of this.
Exactly. And I think, the schedule shook out well for them. They don't play until, there was only one game this week because they've been on the road so much. They'd had the big showcase game that they canceled tonight. But after that, again, they don't play till Friday. So that gave them a little bit of a break. And, they'll be moving on then. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle Friday night and the tributes and what they end up doing as an organization. They've got a couple days to think about it and plan it out now. So it's going to be interesting to see. And it's going to be, an emotional game against a Portland team that I'd say Portland would be right up there. Portland or Utah as the organization Clippers that's Kobe most tortured. over the years with just big games and big moments.
Kurt Helin, of course, from NBC Sports, joining us. You can follow him on Twitter at Basketball Talk. Kurt, the other thing that I was talking about, and I know they're going to end up inducting Kobe with Garnett and Duncan into the Hall of Fame, which is obviously a no-brainer. And to me, it doesn't matter who ends up having the honor of inducting him. Whoever you choose is fine. But that day is going to be so twisted because we're only going to be a few months still removed from him, obviously from losing him. I can't imagine what Vanessa's going to be going through that day because while we're celebrating him and all that stuff and his career and all that, that woman is only going to be thinking that she lost her husband and her daughter, two of the more important people in her life. And I don't know how that woman even handles that day, only a few months removed from losing both of them. It's going to be so weird, the state of mind that most of us are going to be in and the one that she's going to be in, because she's going to be in some personal hell that I don't know how she handles it and how she stays stoic for her kids, too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if she can stay stoic for her kids. And I was wondering that briefly when I was, writing yesterday, just that about Kobe still being on track for the Hall. Like this was going to happen no matter what this year. But it makes the day strange because, yes, people get put posthumously into the Hall of Fame, but it's usually many years removed, right? Like it's not that the person just passed away. It's usually there's some period of time there. This is going to be much more fresh, and it's going to be. I'm curious. Again, this would be interesting for discussion with the Hall about how you handle this. They have a standard format, and a standard ceremony where one guy comes up after the other. But does this take away from Duncan and Garnett's day? Is there a way to separate that out? And by the way, Chris Bosh should be in that group. He is eligible this year. To me, he's a lock Hall of Famer. We'll see if the voters put him in. But and whoever else ends up on the list that year, do you almost do a separate thing for Kobe on a different night just so that it doesn't bleed into what should be a celebration of life for these other people as well? So I'm not sure. I'm not even, they've got time to figure that out, but I'm just not sure. I'm not sure how you handle that.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic point. What'd you think of the league playing the games? Did you think they should have canceled it that same day? I know it was kind of short notice, and everybody that had traveled had already traveled. So I know that the league was put in a difficult situation, but I go back and think about Pete Rozelle, how he took a lot of heat for playing the games after JFK got shot, and he continued, and they moved on. So I think we will move on the same way. But your thoughts on that one?
I wonder if they'd had more time. That day there was one. It was Sunday, obviously. There was an early start game. There almost always is an early start game on Sunday, so Europe can watch.
The Utah,
something
the Utah
in prime
game,
time,
right? The Utah game,
right? Yeah. And so there's always one that's just there to appease the European audience. And Utah's on there because they've got not only Bogdanovich but Rudy Gobert, and so they're kind of a big draw in France in part. So they're on those a fair amount. If there had been only night games, I wonder if it'd been different. If they'd had time to, but by the time they were even thinking about it, players were warming up, the arena was open. Like it would have been very difficult to call off that game. But I wonder if it'd been different if they'd had till that night. But the other part of that is that it's a bear to move games around like that. And I know baseball deals with it a little bit, but they can play a doubleheader. You can't really do that in the NBA.
You're in a city for multiple days. It's different. You can do that.
And you've also just got in the NBA all these arenas are double booked or triple booked. I mean, in the case of Staples, they're going to move this Laker Clipper game. It looks like it's going to be, I think they're looking at April 10th or something like that, because Lakers and Clippers are traveling. Concerts come in there. And don't forget the LA Kings play out of that building. They're actually the primary tenant. They are the people who built the thing. Their ownership group. So, it's just tough to find dates. It's one thing to do it with one game. It'd be something else to do it with 5 or 6 games. That would have been it would have been a real challenge. Plus, the obvious thing is, just say here is, by the way, Kobe would have said play, right? He would have been like, what are you talking about? Can't you?
Yeah. Kobe would have felt better that you're playing in his honor instead of not playing in his honor. Right. Yeah, no.
Exactly.
Yeah, he wants to see what Trae Young did. How Trae was just super inspired the other night.
Yeah.
And he lit it up, absolutely. And so, that's what I think.
There's been some real inspired performances. Buddy Hield dropped 42 last night, a guy who would – that generation, Hield's a little older, but there's a lot of the guys who are in the league now who are in, mid-20s or younger, who Kobe was their Jordan, in a sense. Like when they were growing up, when they were in their teens and formative years, and they were really following not only playing, but really following basketball and watching all these games. Kobe was the biggest guy on the planet, right? And he was – LeBron starting to take over that mantle, but, Kobe had taken it for a while, and there's just a ton of – it's not just the guys like LeBron or even going back, Shaq, and you saw how Shaq and Charles have reacted and stuff, like the guys who have a relationship and played with Kobe. It's Trae Young. A lot of these guys turned to Kobe as a mentor. Luka Doncic worked out with him a couple of summers. Like all these guys grew up kind of idolizing Kobe, and it hit them in a different way.
Well, Eric Gordon had 50 points last night, right?
Yep. Yeah, he did. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so somebody had to step up on that team. That was the upset of the night.
Yeah. Because Harden didn't play last night.
Harden or Westbrook.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, Kurt Helin, of course, from NBC Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at Basketball Talk. The Heat. My brother, where are you at now? We're across the halfway mark. Real or Memorex? What is the ceiling in your eyes for the Miami Heat?
I think conference finals isn't out of the question. Second round, I think, is a reasonable expectation right now, which, by the way, would be a huge, or a much bigger step than I think a lot of us thought they would take this year, before the season.
Amen.
To me, in the East right now, the Bucks are the Bucks, right? Like the Bucks are clearly the best team, arguably the best team in the NBA, but clearly the best team in the East. Going away, and everybody's going to have to play catch up with them. I thought Philly would be there. They've got obviously some offensive issues, and Joel Embiid's out right now, but they've got issues to figure out. I think Miami at least knows who it is. It's been playing. It's like I keep thinking they need another player, and they don't really have a good way to get one. They don't really have a great way to get one at the deadline. More than that, this is not much. Like I don't know that you want to make a huge sacrifice for the guys available at this trade deadline. So I don't know, but I think that like between Miami and Boston and maybe Philly, it's kind of go any way. We'll see who's healthy at the end of the year, who's playing well, but second round and maybe beyond is a reasonable goal for them right now.
Who's the coach of the year?
I had Spoelstra at the midpoint. To me, it's Spoelstra and Nick Nurse. I guess I left Toronto off that list, and I shouldn't. They remain the defending champions who keep surprising everybody. To me, Spoelstra's one, and Nick Nurse is like right on his heels. And then you get into there's a lot of coach of the year can sometimes be one of the toughest ones. Just it's a little difficult to judge coaching from the outside purely. I mean, you can talk to scouts about X's and O's and whatever, but the job of an NBA coach is so much more than that in terms of managing players and minutes and egos and motivation and stuff. And it can be tough from the outside to say that. I think Papa, who's be in the list, by the way?
Ooh.
Spurs been pretty Popovich.
Wow. Yeah.
Coach.
They started slow, and then they've gotten better. Which is typical of Pops, that he figures things out and figures where guys belong, and then all of a sudden,
so they're in there. There's some other guys. Even frankly, my list. I had like 8 guys on my list that I was been watching and thinking about for the award, and like even Frank Vogel's on there because he's done a better. Like the Lakers have been better than I expected. He's getting more out of his role players than I expected. I mean, it's not just that they get Dwight Howard came on the redemption tour, but he's using him really wisely. So it's going to be and other guys on that roster as well. So to me, it's Spoelstra right now, but that's a wide open race. It's it's a really, much like the league this year, it feels a lot more wide open. That race in particular is, I think, honestly, the only end of the year award I feel like somebody's running away with it is Rookie of the Year. After that, there's battles for everything.
Kurt, I'm of the school that I don't think that the Heat really have a lot of trade pieces unless they're going to end up shipping some of their young guys, which I don't think that makes any sense whatsoever because they're also very cap friendly, which is a beautiful thing in this league. So Dion Waiters is the guy that you would try to trade, but he doesn't look like he's tradable yet. And Justice Winslow is a sack of injuries. So can Miami make a move? Do you hear anything before the trade deadline? Can the Heat be players?
They will be involved in stuff. I mean, first off, they always are, right? I mean, between Andy and Pat Riley, I mean, they're one of those teams that is always kicking the tires and looking to be aggressive. I'm just not, like you said, I'm not sure with the players they've got. They've got some, it might be a summer move, but I'm not sure that they can do it right now. But the kind, if you're going to put one more elite player next to, and Bam's kind of evolved and become the third, a potential top 3 kind of guy on a really great team and should be an all-star, by the way. Hopefully he makes it. I'm not sure that the guy you need is out there, and it's a weird trade deadline night now, Big O, because let's use the Pelicans as an example. They were looking like sellers, right? And they're like, well, listen, I was before Christmas and I was at the G League Showcase. I heard Drew Holiday's name a lot and Derek Favors and stuff that, hey, they could help this team and they could make these moves. Then they win a few games, like 11 out of 15 or something, and then they get Zion back. And suddenly they and Sacramento and San Antonio and some of the teams everybody thought would be sellers are like, hey, we got to decide. Do we want to go for the 8th seed? Do we want to do this? I mean, they've only got a week. And so some of them might wait through this weekend and before they really make a push, but you're going to get a late deadline push of who's going to be sellers. And even with all that, I'm just not sure, like I said, for the price they'd have to pay, who Miami gets that really moves the needle for them, right? Like they could fill in some gaps and they might be able to help themselves out on the buyout market or something afterwards. But, I mean, I love Andre Iguodala. How much do you want to give up a first for Andre Iguodala at this point? Does he really move the needle for somebody like them? I don't know if he does. I don't know if he moves it enough.
Miami doesn't have a first rounder for 77 years, so that's not
really.
True.
That's that too.
That's true.
I think the Grizzlies ultimately will come off first and take a high second from somebody. It's become strange. Like firsts are firsts, but what really has become coveted around the league are top 10, top 12 second-round picks, because you can get, once you get past about 20, it depends on the draft, but let's use a round number. Once you get past player about number 20 to 40 is a pretty, who do you like better, like not real hard distinction type of area. And if I can get a guy at 31 and I don't have to give him a guaranteed contract, or I can get him a lot cheaper than the guaranteed money I have to give him in the first round. Like everybody wants those. I think so. I think eventually, though, for what Iguodala can bring, someone will give the Grizzlies one of those.
That's. I got to tell you. All right. So, what's it going to take for Waiters to become tradable? And I know that there's no way they trade him now because he's had all those issues.
Yeah.
So, what does he have to do to become, I guess, sexy by either this offseason or I guess the trade deadline next year? He becomes an expiring contract, so that becomes sexy no matter what. But what does he need to become, or what do the Heat need from him so they can trade him in the offseason?
Well, I think it's two things. A, play a little bit to show that, he can still play, which he kind of did the other night. He looked pretty good in the game he got in, and show that there's still something in the tank, which I think most people believe he has. But the other part of that is just not be disruptive, not be and Miami's it's a unique culture, and it's a little more strict than some other organizations, and other organizations may be a little more open to it and give him a little more leeway. But he's got to prove that you're not really going to be disruptive in the organization, and disruptive to, look, you're coming in to play a role at this point in Dion Waiters. Well, frankly, through all of Dion Waiters' career, but especially now. You're playing a role, and if I think you're going to upset the apple cart, then it's not worth it. I can get somebody else. So he's got to prove, and that's going to take some work by his agent. That's going to take work by a lot of people, not just the Heat. That's a little more on Dion to prove that, hey, if you bring me in, I'm not going to be a problem, and that's nobody wants to bring that into their culture. Frankly, I mean that's more than just a basketball thing. That's a life thing. Nobody really is looking to bring in the disruptive force, except for the girls I dated in my 20s.
Follow him on Twitter at Basketball Talk. Follow his work there at NBC Sports. Kurt, what are you guys working at so they can check you out there at NBC Sports?
Obviously, we'll still have a lot of Kobe stuff, and we're starting to get back into the groove of everything else with around the league power rankings coming out tomorrow and all that. But look, we've got a lot of Kobe stuff. We'll continue to have a lot of Kobe stuff following both tributes to Kobe and all of that, and what the league ends up doing, but also and through the All-Star game, which will another place it'll be interesting to see what kind of tributes they do. But also the investigation into what exactly happened and how this accident happened, which is kind of, I don't know enough about it, but it's in terms of, like, I'm not a pilot, but it's kind of an interesting how did this happen scenario.
Good stuff as always. Kurt, you are the best, my brother. Thank you for taking some time, man.